Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to take a look at and have a little chat about the new Battle Sister Bulletin, which is showing off the Canoness, because good lord, are there some conflicting opinions, a bit of a controversial one, this one, for the Sisters of Battle. So, they're showing off the Canoness, and I actually quite like it most of it. I like most of it. A little bit busy in places, if I'm honest. I have to admit, the oversized, the mad collar there that raises into the kind of symbol-esque fleur-de-lis thing that's going on at the top there. I'm not a massive fan of that part of the model. I will say I quite like the over-the-top vestments that are going on. I like the excessively kind of like ostentatious robes that are happening on this model, especially the dangly incense burners. It's very impractical, but to be honest, in the context of the way the army looks as a whole, I dig it. I quite like it. I'm not massively keen on the pimp cane there, which seems to be becoming a bit of a recurring theme with a lot of the character stuff. I mean, the Primaris Chaplain has got a bit of a cane going on himself, and now the Canoness as well. The thing that seems to be causing the most contention is the face. See, the Canoness is not young. The Canoness is actually, she's getting on a bit. She's pretty old. And from what I can see, there's a fairly distinct split of those who think that that's fine, and those who are really not impressed with the idea of an older lass leading the Sisters of Battle into, well, battle. To be honest, I think it quite works. I mean, for a start, I'm assuming that you do not simply waltz in through the training that the Sisters of Battle go through and immediately get named Canoness. You're not going to be a Canoness at like 20 years old or whatever. That seems unlikely. There needs to be a significant amount of experience, a significant amount of skill. You need to have the years behind you to really be effective in that role, I would assume. And so having an older Canoness does make sense to me. Now, you can dislike the aesthetic of it, but I quite like the implication of it, that, you know, you still have to be experienced. The Sisters of Battle aren't all made up of clone 20 to 25-year-olds with perfectly smooth skin, aside from the occasional battle scar. This feels far more realistic than that, even if other parts of the model do not feel realistic at all. I'm looking specifically at you, giant collar ornament thing. The thing is, I can kind of see, on the one hand, where some complaints are coming from. I mean, I've seen a few people saying, well, how are they that old and still running in to fight? To be honest, that I don't think should even be really a concern. This is set in a universe where there are like redo treatments and stuff. People live far longer than they do now, provided they're not, murdered horribly by some sort of disgraceful warp entity, or eaten by a tyrannid, or flayed down to their component atoms by a Necron Gauss cannon, or whatever. There's plenty of stuff in that universe to keep people around for far longer. It's not like everyone is inhibited by the same lifespan. There are those people of importance. They can live for longer than most. There are treatments available to do so. I mean, this is a universe where, for a start, the Canoness here is missing at least part of one leg. In a universe where there are ways to keep people young, there are ways to heal wounds beyond any capacity that we have now, where damaged or destroyed limbs can be replaced with bionic enhanced, like replacements. Someone being getting on a little bit compared to the vast majority of the force that they're leading really doesn't seem like a big deal to me. And if anything, I think it just adds weight to the fact that this character is a Canoness. Like, there's clearly a veritable weight of years going on here. She's not just some rando that's been selected for the position. She's getting on. She's seen a lot. She has presumably learned how to control and direct her forces with a level of skill and a level of experience that you only really get with age. I mean, yeah, you might have some sort of prodigy commander, but for the most part, I would expect that someone to be in as senior and influential a position as a Canoness, that person is most likely going to have been around for a bit. It doesn't seem like a big deal to me. And also, given the shape of this, it's safe to assume, I think, that there won't be that much in the way of options for the head. Although, to be honest, much though this is quite clearly going to be monoposed, much like most of the other stuff, that does not look like a difficult head swap for me. So even if you were determined that, no, you're not going to have, someone running around looking old in your army, it's not going to be a difficult thing to replace by any means at all. That seems like a fairly simple job to just cut that away and put another one in, and that's assuming that it doesn't come with 2 head options. It may well do. Every other thing that we've seen in terms of armoured Sisters of Battle have been very clear that the Sisters of Battle will come with a bare head and a helmeted head. Now, it would be nice if this came with that option, but even if it didn't, I feel like it wouldn't be that difficult to swap it out for a helmet if you wanted. And if you've got, a few helmeted Sisters of Battle and a few bareheaded Sisters of Battle in your normal squad, well, you'll have a choice as to whether to do a helmet, a aged face, or a young face. It won't take much to swap it out. But to be honest, even if I did swap the head out, which is kind of likely, as you all know by this point, I am very much in the camp of helmets at all times. Don't leave your forehead out in the open, because that's how you get shot in the face. Although, mind you, depending on the weapon, a helmet might not do that much to protect that anyway. I just prefer the uniform look, and I hate painting skin. So, helmets all the way. For this, I think in terms of, should you go as far as to assign names, assign kind of rough histories or anything to your characters, or even just every model in your army. I don't go quite that far, but I know a few people who do. I'd be totally happy with the Canoness being an older Sister of Battle. I mean, it seems pretty plausible to me. It seems like not that big a deal that someone who is a bit older would be leading the charge, or at least directing the forces. You get more experienced with age. That's literally how that works. Now, there is also the thing that you can attribute that kind of aging process to a whole bunch of things. For all we know, the Canoness isn't even that old to begin with. I would imagine going into constant war zones, being under constant stress, constantly being shot at, stabbed at, slashed at, having warp magics thrown at you, all of that, it's going to cause a bit of premature aging, I feel like. It doesn't take much stress for the human body to start showing signs of wear, a little bit earlier than you might otherwise want it to be. I can attest to that. When my first daughter was born, I spent 2 months in hospital, most of my hair turned white. And it wasn't really that bad before, but it sure as hell was by the time I got home. That could easily be a situation here. I mean, we could just be looking at essentially the Warhammer 40,000 equivalent of the person who smoked for 20 years and therefore look about 20 years older than they actually are. Either way, for the most part, I think the model's alright. As I say, I'm not a massive fan of the stick. I could stand to lose the stick. That's something that I think could be replaced fairly easily, depending on how this is split up. It does look like we've got a bit of a seam there. I mean, obviously this is a render, it's not actually a model, but there's a bit of a seam, it looks like, on that collar, so it's probably front and back will stick together, which means the arm will most likely be part of one or the other. So there is a chance you might be able to chop a bit of the stick off and replace it with something a bit more imposing, shall we say. It looks like there's a plasma pistol, or a plasma gun, probably a pistol, on the back hip there, which is cool. The sword, I do like quite a bit. There's a bit more detail further down, I say a bit more detail, there's some close-ups. The silly thing is, I like that, even if I can never remember how to pronounce it. There's just the stick I'm not a big fan of. The detail on that obviously looks a bit rough right now, but it's a render and it's a work in progress, so that'll obviously get more refined and things. That's a pretty standard motif for a lot of the Sisters of Battle stuff anyway. The bionic leg I do like. Again, that's a good indicator of time and experience spent fighting. The design of said leg, I'm not someone who deals in replacement prosthetics or anything, so I have no idea whether that actual design would work. It looks a bit weird, but it is something that gives her a little bit more character, a little bit more history straight out of the box. Overall, I do like it. It is a bit busy. It does go against my thing of piling a bit too much detail onto the model. I think the most significant change I would make, though, isn't even to the stuff on the front. I quite like the stuff on the front. It is that collar and that kind of icon that it builds into. I would prefer that not to be there. Now, that I think would be a bit more of a pain to get rid of, if I'm honest, but you know, with a pair of clippers, a file, and a craft knife, it's amazing what you can shave off a model if you really don't like it, and I think that will probably end up being ditched. The rest of it, though, I do like quite a lot. I think it's a model that has like a certain distinguished air to it, which I feel is pretty appropriate for a Canoness of the Sisters of Battle. The question is, what do you think of this one? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Where do you stand on the age thing? Would you prefer it to be fresh faced like the rest of them, or do you think a bit of weathering, a bit of age shows experience and shows essentially a rise through the ranks earned over time? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Feel free to click all of the things. Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to. And as always, there is a link in the description down below for an affiliate link for Element Games. So if you're going to buy some 40k stuff, you could do it through there. You'll save money. You were going to buy it anyway, and I get a little something for sending you that way. It's a nice way to support the channel, doing something that you would do regardless. So you can use that if you like. It's entirely up to you. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Toodaloo.